Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here coming at you from the Knife Center, and it's that time of the week we're taking a look at the coolest new knives that have just hit our shelves. Let's check them out. All right, here we have the latest version of probably, well, one of two of the most popular folding knives to come out this year, the button lock Elementum. New version here comes in about 107 with the Damascus blade and the marbled carbon fiber handles. And this is another one. These just went live yesterday by the time you're watching this video, if you watch it on day one. And we do have a good number this time around, so we'll see how fast they move. But the last time these came in, they were out super fast. So again, you might want to check that out if you're interested. Now, kind of interesting story behind this knife. I'll give you a little bit of kind of behind the scenes stuff going on. The marbled carbon fiber version, like I said, is new. They had versions with blue and red in the carbon fiber previously. And again, in and out, super quick. And as they went to make more, they honestly weren't really satisfied with the material. They were having a little bit of some issues on the back end. So they decided rather than send out a compromised product, they're going to send out a different one. And that is this guy right here. Blade itself is about 3.5 inches long, so you've got an extra 1/2 inch over the standard Elementum flipper. And the Damascus that they use is a 9CR series stainless steel as the base, so it's kind of 440C levels of performance. And like all Elementums, you got that very acute and keen hollow grind with the very thin and very sharp edge. But just like the original Elementum, you've got a very similar handle shape, just a little bit longer, that has a nice elliptical shape that's going to work with a lot of different hand sizes as well. But of course, the reason for being on this knife is the button lock here, and it's kind of a different take on a lot of button locks there. You can see I kind of wrist flicked it closed while holding the button lock down. That's kind of your main opening and closing method for this. You can see there's no thumb studs, and without the button being depressed, that blade is actually locked into the closed position. It won't move until you actually push that button lock down. So there's a few ways you can kind of go about opening these guys. You can push the button, do that wrist flick, super easy, has a nice action to it. Same thing on the close. You can do a more deliberate two-hand opening as well. Just push the button, do your two-hand thing, very easy. And if you want something kind of in between, you can kind of approximate a thumb stud action. Push the button just a little bit and let the blade drop, and then you can put your thumb on it and rotate it the rest of the way open. Thanks to that little hollow grind, you have a little bit of a positive angle of engagement for your thumb if you go to push it out that way. And then of course you can close it one-handed as well, much like you would like an axis lock if you weren't flipping it closed. You could just use your index finger to move it over. But like I said, very popular new knife, and I'm glad to see CIVIVI taking the time to kind of correct a problem they saw on their end to make sure you guys are getting a good product. Furthermore, on top of these that we have for sale, we're actually giving one of these away over on our Instagram channel, not here on YouTube. So we'll make sure to leave a link down in the description below this video so you can head over there and see how you can enter to win one of these bad boys. All right, next up, it's exclusive time, which normally I put right at the front of the video, so you know what I showed you before this was even more important. But we have a new Kitefin exclusive here from We Knife Company, which of course is the parent company to CIVIVI knives. Really cool handle material. That's the differentiation of this over the previous versions out there. We've got a layered black and white G10 with a custom milling pattern on the front. Reveals some of those layers. You get that nice contrast. It just looks really cool. And as a bonus, it comes in a couple dollars less than other versions that were out there. This is just under $140 right now. Blade itself, 3¼ inches, S35 VN blade steel. Similar to that Elementum, we've got a nice thin hollow grind with that thin and sharp edge, and just a great shape for everyday use. A little less belly than that Elementum, but you've got plenty of slicing profile and a very acute tip for piercing. This is going to carry really nicely also. It's a very slim knife overall, and the weight on these guys comes in a very reasonable 2.5 ounces as well. So it's not like Benchmade Bug Out light, but it's pretty close, and you get some fancier materials to boot, including titanium frame lock on the back. We kept the titanium there. Deep carry pocket clip, nice and smooth going in and out of the pocket, but thanks to the G10 on the front, you've got more grip than some of the other versions that have been made so far. And then spicing it up just a little bit, you got some kind of bronze accents going on the screws on the front, little milled holes here on the pocket clip, the pivot hardware, just really nice. And speaking of the pivot, ball bearings, of course, and nice flippy action. All right, next up, we've got a new knife from Custom Knife Factory. This is the T15 in Alexei Konigin design. Positive I'm saying his name wrong. These guys come in about $450. And I think the thing I like the most about this knife is the blade itself. It is about 3 3/4 inches long. It's fairly big, but there are two main reasons why it's noteworthy to me. First is the steel. It's M398, which is, Thomas, do you know what that means?
It means 8 more M's.
It means 8 more M's, people, which is correct, but also completely incorrect. Thank you, by the way.
I'm a camera guy, not a blade guy.
That is the appropriate answer, though. M398 is, however, it is an evolution of M390. It's got basically elements in it that is going to give it even higher edge retention than M390. It's going to have that greater wear resistance going on, and they've even left us with a nice thin edge on this bad boy, even though it's a bigger blade as well. So you're really going to be able to take advantage of that higher steel, or I say higher quality. They're all the same quality, but you know what I mean. Take advantage of the greater edge retention you're going to get there. And the shape is just great for kind of a heavier duty EDC. Even though this is not like a super tough steel, I wouldn't think, it's got the shape that's really ready to go to town on some bigger push cuts, I would say, thanks to the modified Wharncliffe shape with the high flat grind and that nice wide swedge. Now, the other thing I really like about the blade, this is number 2, is the blade to handle ratio. And honestly, this is not something I get overly worked up about. I know some people out there will put like empirical scores. It has to have like the max amount of blade to a handle. I don't always buy into that. I mean, the Spyderco Delica is a great knife that completely fails those kind of tests. But on this knife, I really do like the amount of blade they've crammed into this handle. About 3 3/4 on the blade. But then when you measure the handle length from the leading edge of the handles all the way back, just about 4.5. Difference of about 3/4 inch there, which is not a heck of a lot, but you can just see, I think, visually how much blade is in there. It helps that the blade is kind of really tall as well. It accentuates kind of its proportions a little bit, but you've got a lot going on there, absolutely. There's still plenty to hold on to as well. I do have slightly larger than average hands, as channel regulars know, and the pinky finger for me hits right on this back sloped section very nicely and kind of get a little closer in if I want to, but it feels very comfortable right there. These handles themselves are titanium. We've got a black stone washed finish, a few cutouts as well to kind of see through the knife handle, removes a little bit of weight as well. And that's a good point, actually. Weight on this guy is just over 4 ounces for such a large knife. Not too bad. Frame lock on the back, ball bearings in the pivot. Let's try it. Oh yeah, flips really well. Single position pocket clip, milled titanium. It's not deep carry, even though it might look almost like it is. Like, you know, the Buck Sprints out there have a similar folded clip, but this guy, as you can see from there, is a nice milled piece. Overall, I'm just really impressed. It gets all these little details so right. Got the nice landing spot there for your flipper. Really interesting blade shape that looks, you know, it stands on its own. It doesn't look like it's mimicking anything else, but it's still a highly usable shape as well. All right, next up, we've got a bunch of new Bestechs. The first is the Nogard. Very distinctive shape to this blade as well. Even more standy on its own-y than that Custom Knife Factory. But still, another very useful shape. I'd still call this kind of a fat modified Wharncliffe in this case. Pricing on these is a little more affordable than that Custom Knife Factory. We're about $305 right now. Now, the steel on this blade is, well, I'm sorry to say you don't get those 8 extra M's, but you do get M390, 3 and like 3.4 thereabouts. And the look on this particular one with the two-tone finish, the satin bevels and the black stonewash flats looks exceptionally nice. There are a few different handle options. This is a red marbled, or a red, they call it marbled. Yeah, I'd say it's marbled. I thought it looked a little shreddy there for a minute. A marbled carbon fiber with some red inserts, kind of similar to what they were doing on that button lock Elementum for a while. And this particular one, the way you have that inlaid into the titanium flows really nicely with that two-tone blade. But there are versions with some subtler handles, and there's some all blacked out blade versions, but I think, you know, the lines of it were kind of made for this style right here. They've also got a blue inserted marbled carbon fiber as well. Handles are kind of angular, but surprisingly decent in the hand. Feels not quite a hand filling grip. In fact, the blade might feel a little out of proportion compared to it, but you're going to be able to get a pretty decent grip on there though. We've got a frame lock, and when I first saw this, I had to do a little bit of a double take because of the way the inlay is shaped. This looks almost like Kershaw's and ZT's subframe lock, but it isn't. It's actually connected. It's part of this back piece of titanium right there, so they're not stepping on anyone's toes with that bad boy, but you get kind of a similar look in this case. Ball bearings in the pivot. You can open it two ways. You've got the thumb stud for opening. You've got the flipper, which works really well when I hit it right. There you go. Sorry, folks.
Also, that's a thumb hole.
What did I call it?
You called it a thumb stud.
Well, it's a thumb hole. Sorry, internet. It's a thumb hole. There you go. Now, I haven't tried this yet. Let's see if I can do the middle finger flick on this. Thomas may need his wide angle for this in case it goes flying. Probably not. Not too bad. I needed a little bit of wrist action, but it works pretty good. Overall, really cool. Milled titanium pocket clip on the back. I didn't talk about that yet. Cool treatment to the back spacer here. It's kind of milled out, so it's not just completely flush. You got a little more to look at there. A little bit of milled out sections in the inside of the handle as well to take a little bit of the weight out. Just a pretty cool knife. All right, next up we have a new O-Stop Hell design, and definitely not, there's definitely something outside the norm for O-Stop. Definitely something outside the norm for most folding pocket knives overall. This is the Strelit. They call it a push dagger, but it's got kind of that recurve blade going on. Not quite a karambit, not quite a push dagger. It's just a little handy hawkbill in a way. And these guys come in about $220 right now. Very unconventional design, I've got to say. Specs read like just about anything else. You've got titanium for the handles with a frame lock, marbled carbon fiber inlays with some blue in this case, and an M390 blade. About, well, they're calling it about a 2-inch blade, but that's probably measuring from the scale out to the tip there. The sharpened edge is closer to an inch, maybe just a little bit over an inch. But it holds much like any conventional push dagger. You can see it sticks out very naturally between the index and middle fingers. Gonna make, you know, self-defense applications maybe, but this is kind of not the right vibe. The rest of the knife for maybe a self-defense knife. I think it's just kind of a cool piece of man jewelry, or woman jewelry of course, that will open some boxes for you. Let's be honest, the Hawkbill blade does have a lot of utility if you're comfortable using it and sharpening it. Really great box and package openers. The downward tip of those has a tendency to kind of stay in a cut very nicely, so it's less likely to kind of slip out as you're going through. I will say maybe because of my finger size, hand and finger size, it's a little tricky on the unlock just because, I shouldn't say it's tricky, but because it's sticking straight forward rather than straight out, or how would you describe that? Because it's sticking at almost 90-degree angle as opposed to a 180 that a normal knife would have, when you go to unlock it, the blade's already partway closed. Because my fingers are kind of on the bigger side, they almost feel like they're in the way of the blade, so I have to think about it before I go to close it. It does have a really cool shape when it's folded up though. You can see kind of the really cool lines going on there. Now in terms of opening methods, there's actually 2 things going on here. Well, maybe 3. You can conventional flip it, and it is kind of disconcerting to feel it stop kind of halfway through the travel that you would normally expect. You could also front flip it, or at least slow roll it with your thumb there, see if you can get a good angle on that for Thomas there. But also, this section here, you can use it as a pocket deployer, similar to the Emerson Wave. You actually can pull it out, have this section grab the hem of your pocket if you want it to, and it'll flip the blade open as you go. Just a really cool, one-of-a-kind piece right here. All right, I spent a lot of time on these leading knives. Let me try to speed things up here a little bit. A couple new Bestechs, some of their more affordable version or affordable knives. Next, this right here is the Lizard, in kind of the most out there G10 version that is out now, although there are some more conventional looking ones. They're calling this Lime G10. It's sort of like a Jade G10 in that it's translucent, but you've got more of a yellow color going on, and it really is kind of a striking look next to all the black hardware, liners, everything that's going on with the rest of this particular color version. Price on these, much more affordable than the last few knives we've looked at, just $52 for these. And you've got a D2 blade coming in under 2.5 inches. As for feel in the hand, you've got a pretty wide handle and some contouring to the G10 as well, so it's not super blocky. And you can hold it in just the standard way right behind the flipper tab. And for me, I can get about 3 fingers on that guy. And that's going to give you a decent amount of power on the hold. If you need to kind of push through some things a little heavier, you can always choke up on the finger choil. It is fairly wide. Just watch the back edge of the blade itself there, and you can get a real full grip on that. I mean, I can really wrap my hands all the way around that and not feel like it's too small in the palm. On top of that, this is going to be a pretty good knife for some more detailed cuts because we'll call this a, I don't know, what do we want to call that? Modified cleaver shape almost. It's kind of somewhere in between a sheep's foot and a cleaver in a way, but it's going to pinch really nicely here, right at the pivot point, bringing that tip down. You're going to be able to do some kind of like utility knife tasks with it pretty easily. As for the rest of the action going on, you can flip it, you can do the middle finger. Let's see, I haven't tried it on this one either. Easier than the last one for me. Works really well for that. Flips open really nicely. Got a nice deep carry pocket clip there for right hand carry as well. So speaking of knives with sort of a utility knife bent, this Bestech Sledgehammer, I think, is a completely different example of a utility knife style. And this guy also comes in at $52, also with a D2 blade, just like that previous guy. I don't know if I mentioned that on that one. Now, technically, you of course would call this a tanto, but it's got a very blunt's not the right word. It is sharp, but a very almost squared off tip going on. Not quite like a chisel, not like the Razel knives out there. And you do have a little bit of belly to it, but kind of holding it like so and pushing forward, you can get some pretty strong chisel-y type cuts with a blade shape like this. And of course, it definitely helps that the blades are nice and sharp as well. Rest of the knife, you've got a full flat grind, or just a little hint of full thickness spine right here, and decently thick. It's not a super thin knife, so you can push this a little harder if you need to. That's something, I'd call that about 3/32 of an inch thick. And I just checked the specs, and I think my eyeball calipers are letting me down. They're saying it's a 0.12, so almost a full 1/8 of an inch. Handles, micarta, a few different colors. Standard liner lock, full-length liners on both sides, and skeletonized on the front, but not on the back, or actually one skeletonized hole on the back. The micarta is a real nice vibe for kind of a utility knife like this. And then when you fold the guy up, no flipper tab sticking out the back, so it's fairly compact, whether you're sticking this in a pocket or a tool belt. And then you go to use those dual thumb studs, you can pop the blade very nicely. All right, next up we've got a Terrain 365. This is the Otter Flip AT, and it's essentially a titanium frame lock flipping modern version of a traditional Barlow knife. You've got that very Barlow-esque spear point here. Comes in right at 3 inches. You've got an almost full flat grind here as well, and it's using the Teravantium material, which is not steel. It's kind of a dendritic cobalt with even higher edge retention than most steels, if not all steels out there. I'm not sure if it's all, but very, very, very high edge retention going on. I think this is going to make an excellent gentleman's knife with this type of vibe, but it's a gentleman's knife that doesn't have to be like too ostentatious. It has a very classy look without being too blingy or too shouty. I really like that. It's a nice classy presentation when closed as well. You do have the flipper tab there, milled titanium pocket clip, some contouring to the handles. It's nice and rounded over, not blocky. Flips open really nicely on those ball bearings. Feels great in the hand. I even love the little pinch point they've got right at the leading edge of the handle scales for some more detail work. Honestly, this is pretty nice. I'm not sure. There's a couple right now that are vying for my favorite contender for this week. This is definitely up there, and made in the USA as well. Really like this guy. So the Barlow, of course, traditionally is a slip joint pattern, and on that note, we've got some new case knives this week. 25th anniversary editions of their pocket worn series. This one right here is the Canoe with olive green bone. It comes in about $80, but several different patterns in this configuration right now. But it's a really cool knife. The Canoe, of course, gives you a larger spear point blade on one side and a smaller pen blade on the other, all riding on 2 layers, not a single layer slip joint in this case. You do have 2 separate back springs. but very similar blade shape to that main blade, to that, Terrain 360 that we just looked at. But in this case, you're getting a true sharp stainless steel, which is Case's name for their 420 series. Definitely more, more down to earth, so to speak. But really classy looking handles here. Another excellent gentleman's knife option, just in a completely different kind of vibe to those guys. And just another great EDC that's not going to be too shouty either. Next up, we've got a new Boker tree brand knife. Not a German-made version, however, but this is their new Hawkbill slip joint. Comes in at a very affordable $23. And you got this massive Hawkbill blade shape right out the front, about 3 inches. Again, simple stainless steel in this case with a full flat grind. And you've got that with a sway back handle shape with the jigged bone. And perhaps the most impressive thing at this price point, honestly, is that you've got actual bone there, not something like Delrin. As for utility, of course, this is a very common shape for like a pruning blade for the gardeners out there. But, you know, we talked about the utility applications of a Hawkbill before. You can certainly get that with these guys. And I actually really like the way this fills up my hand as well. That big swell at the end of that sway back handle has a way of really locking into my grip. Action on them is pretty good. You got a nice half stop going on. Snaps closed pretty easy. And with the blade shape like this, you've got a lot to grab onto to open that guy up, so it's not going to be a problem whatsoever. All right, next up is the Boker 98K Damascus folder. Comes in about $315, and this is a rather special knife. The reason being is kind of like the P08, I think it was, that we showed last week or 2 weeks ago. Can't even remember. My distortion of time right here is really out there. But this kind of pays homage to some traditional firearms from the German side of thing, in this case, the 98K carbine. And the blade steel is actually made partially from the carbine barrels, and it's made for Boker by Chad Nichols here in the States as well. So you got a really cool ripple pattern Damascus going on. Blade itself is about 3.3 inches, just in a classic clip point shape, but a little bit on the thicker side. It's definitely a very stout thing. The handle scales themselves are walnut, and in this case, they gave it some diagonal grooves. They're trying to make this tie into the bayonets that used to be fixed to some of those guns. And lockback mechanism, but you've got a protruding tab to actuate rather than a cutout on the underside. Now, if you're really gripping this knife hard, I mean, I'm really trying, and I can't really get that. I can get it to wiggle a little bit, but I'm not making it accidentally disengage. Do be aware, though, that the lock release is sticking up a little bit. Might have to take a little bit of extra care, but it operates just like any other lockback that you may be used to. Good snap on the close there. And this one, man, just a really nice piece of German craftsmanship, serialized number 38. One more German-made Boker now for today. This is the Blue Shell Straight Razor, really cool handle material. The blade itself is 01 steel, very, very thin grind as you'd expect from Boker. Price on these just over $200, but that's not the really special part of this guy. The special part in this case are these handles, and it is a blue power shell material, not completely structurally, but it's basically a relative of abalone or other kinds of sea snails, and you get a layer of that with acrylic poured over the top to kind of protect it. But as a result, these are actually natural shell handles going on, at least underneath that acrylic protection. Amazing coloration, amazing reflections going on. This is one of those things where I don't have words to describe. It's just so beautiful. You can see in there, you can see the seams where they put two pieces of the shell veneer together, because strips this long I think are naturally impossible to achieve. Doesn't detract from it in my eyes, man. These are just so cool. So whether you're looking to really upgrade your shave and shave with something truly one of a kind, definitely an option here. Or if you're a straight razor collector, definitely don't pass these guys up. All right, next up we've got a new Microtech. This is one of their signature series Ultratechs, coming in just over $400, about $415. And we've got two things going on. Apart from the standard aluminum, you've got OD Green G10 on the front side, and you've got the apocalyptic bronze finish on the blade and the hardware. Double-edged, of course, about 3.5 inches long on the blade. I really like that apocalyptic bronze finish. You get kind of a stonewashed finish with a hint of color to it. I do like a stonewashed finish, and I like the kind of natural look of that. It kind of mimics like a patinaed finish in a way. And blade steel on this guy, It's really nice. You've got 3.5 inches double edge, so almost 7 inches of M390 steel. So even though you've got, 8 fewer M's than M398, at least you got double the edge. So probably come out ahead on that one, I'd say.
Probably.
Math checks out.
It checked out.
Yeah. And of course, it is a Microtech OTF, so you can do that all day long and never get tired of it. People next to you might get tired of it though, but we don't care about them, do they?
That's not our problem.
All right, next up from Spyderco, we've got the thin blue line and thin red line series of knives now in stock. A few different patterns going on. I've got the Endura here as well as the Rescue 3, but of course we've also got the Delica available. And basically it's a standard version of both of these knives, just pimped up a little bit. You've got the standard FRN handle scales going on, standard VG10 blades, fully serrated on the Rescue, partial on the Endura and on the Delica as well. And the difference being you've got the thin blue line or the thin red line there on the backspacer of each of these knives. Police and firefighters, of course, respectively, and each of those has a blade engraving on the front to reflect it. The Endella is also coming up soon if you want that mid-size knife in the Delica and Endura family, but they're not in quite just yet. And good cause going, or the sales of these go to a good cause as well. But for the thin blue line, Spyderco is going to be donating the proceeds to the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. And then for the thin red line knives, the proceeds are going toward the Wildland Firefighter Foundation. Really cool. Even if that's not your thing, I really just like the extra pop of color on these. And you see it there not just on the backside, but you can see it peeking out there from the inside of the handles as well. It's almost like they dipped those or something in that color. So you get a cool bit of kind of color peeking out from the handles too. All right, next up we've got a bunch of new handle scales for the Paramilitary 2 from Flytanium. These are the Lotus scales, shown here in titanium, still in the package. They're about 84 bucks. G10s and Micartas also available, starting at I think at like 45 bucks, so very reasonable. I actually picked up a pair of the green linen Micarta to put on one of my pair of 2s, and I gotta say the contouring here really transforms the feel of the knife. These are about 49 bucks for the Micarta, and what I like about these two is it's already started to take on a little bit of personality just from your skin oils here around the edges, but man, really comfortable feeling in the hand compared to the blockier G10 that the standard knife comes with. Completely transformative, really. Like that's what it comes down to. Has a very, very different feel. I will say though that there's a tiny little bit of flex to the Micarta. Obviously Micarta is not as rigid as G10 can be. I haven't thrown one of the G10 sets of scales, Lotus scales on here to see how they compare, but didn't bother me or bother me a little bit right when I put them on, but quickly forgot that it was going on. I just love the way they feel in the hand with the contours. I mean, contours are everything, guys. Got to love it, and especially these guys being so affordable, almost a no-brainer, really. And last but not least, these slim bolt actions from Tactile Turner here. 3 different lengths. Right here I have the Mini, which is of course the smallest of the bunch, coming in 99 bucks, made in the USA. And as I've always said about Tactile Turn, the precision on these guys is absolutely out of this world. The bolt feels so precise, very satisfying to use. This mini one right here, if you're looking for a very unobtrusive or very minimal carry, this is definitely going to do the trick. We've got a screw-on milled clip on the side. Refills, of course, each different size of this pen series is going to take a different refill, so there's options there. But you can see there where I started to unscrew the tip. When you screw it back on, thanks to kind of the milled ridges they have on this, you don't even see where the nose cone starts and where the body itself begins, because it just blends in really nicely. Now, quick way of comparison, I have one of their standard ones here in my pocket. If you're wondering how the slim compares to the standard body versions, I've never really felt the standard ones were like too thick and chunky, but if you do like an extra thin or a slimmer pen, this is definitely a way forward for you. All right, that's all the time I've got today to show you some cool new knives. If you want to get your hands on any of these guys, we'll leave links in the description as always. And again, it's never our intent to frustrate folks here, but if some of these things have gone out of stock already, we do sincerely apologize. but we still want to be able to share the stuff with you. At least we can all live vicariously through the folks who did manage to score some of these. Let me know what you think of the rest of these picks down in the comments. And if you head over to our site, make sure you sign up for our Knife Rewards program so you can earn some free money to spend on your next knife when you buy one of these knives today. I'm David C. Anderson from the KnifeCenter signing off. See you next time.